there is a concept called STARS, and what that stands for, that acronym stands for, is startup, turnaround, accelerated growth, realignment, and sustaining success. So the concept is every single business is in one of these stages. Sometimes they're in multiple of the stages. There can be some crossover. So, for example, let's say, and that's one of the unique things, I guess, when I'm saying my diverse experience in a few different industries, marketing for, and also a few different specialties. It's also marketing for companies at various life cycle stages. So, in the startup aspect, you really have to develop the brand. So from the start, you have to develop the brand's why, how, and what. Why do they do what they do? How do they do what they do? And what are they really offering?
Hey, in this episode of the Master Delegator podcast, I am joined by Branden Cobb to talk about the different marketing approaches based on the STARS, STARS business stages. Branden is an accomplished marketing executive, most recently completing an interim chief marketing officer role, and before that, holding several vice president and head of marketing roles. He has a diverse background in marketing, which helps him understand the full marketing flywheel and all the elements that make a holistic marketing approach. He also has marketed in multiple industries and to an entire spectrum of consumers. Hey, Branden, welcome to the Master Delegator podcast. I am so excited for our interview today. So thank you for showing up.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, before we dive in, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what is it that you do?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been marketing at the most senior levels of multiple organizations, heading up their marketing departments. So some of the industries I've marketed in have been financial services, charity or cause marketing related things for pretty big brands. And then entertainment, the promotion and distribution internationally of movies. And then most recently, real estate. And so, yeah, that's, I've got experience in probably every specialty of marketing that is out there. And then I usually kind of try to zoom out and be the generalist that glues together and pieces together, the overall big picture.
That's good to know. And when you say marketing, do you mean traditional or digital or both?
Both. So, growing up through my career, it was more on the traditional side. Most recently, I did head up a leads development department that was very much on the digital and also like demand generation and growth. It is interesting because a lot of marketing departments or a lot of companies are now splitting their marketing departments in two. So there's usually the more traditional branding and traditional marketing pieces, and then there's the more online demand generation and growth. So the thing that I enjoy is understanding the whole flywheel and momentum that's created between the synergy between both, and really marrying the two together.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that some companies are doing that. I don't personally know a company that's kind of separated the traditional approach to marketing and then the more digital, or let's say up-to-date marketing division of their business. So, and I don't know, as a business owner, I feel like I wouldn't know how to approach, both traditional and digital marketing at the same time. I feel like in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like in a way they're kind of like competing against each other because they're kind of like wanting to see, okay, which one is working the best? Is it online or offline? If that makes sense. But I don't think they're really competing. I mean, you're just testing out what works best, for the business. But in your
on that point, I'll say I think they complement each other. So
Yeah.
it's more of an integrated approach where, yeah, can one succeed on its own? Somewhat, yes. Where's the major success when they're really working in collaboration?
Yeah, that's true. That's the right term. Complementing, each other. So, based on your experience, on your recent experience, what works the most? Traditional or, the digital marketing, or it just depends on when they're at in their business, or depends on what type of business they have?
It depends on the audience, depends on the product and
Mm-hmm.
service, and so then the targeted consumer. Um,
Yeah.
different demographics, different personalities react differently with different channels of marketing. So you just got to understand who the consumer is and what product and service you're trying to get out there. And then again, when we're talking about this integrated approach, it's more of that while you may use all aspects, yes, you may use a certain element of marketing more heavily than another, but that doesn't mean you erase any one element. It just means that's your strategy, is like if you're putting together if you're cooking a meal and you're putting together a
Mm-hmm.
recipe, you put different levels of different ingredients in, and that mix ultimately creates your recipe. So that's your strategy in marketing, is what that mix is, and how much of each element.
Yeah, that's so that's so great to hear. But in a way, when you mentioned the word recipe, I got hungry all of a sudden because it's past 10 a.m. here, and I have not had breakfast yet, so that's why. So, tell me about your achievements so far.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the most recent achievements was heading up the leads development department for Corcoran Global Living. So, Corcoran was a company that was uh, started on the West Coast in
You
2020.
mean Barbara Corcoran,
It was
or is
started
that
by
different?
No, it was started by Barbara Corcoran in New York back in the 80s. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she's no longer involved with the company, but they continue to license her name. And so they've always been in New York, always been very successful in New York, but they started franchising their name in 2020. And so the company I was with, a smaller company in San Diego with 6 offices, we were acquired by Corcoran Global Living. And with that came a lot of opportunities from expanding initially the territory that I was supporting as running the marketing for this region. And then eventually that led me to head up the leads development department. That was all about demand generation and growth. And so with that, this company is acquiring, I don't know, 15, 20 different companies. And there were many half-baked lead programs, but no unity, no consistency, no company-wide lead department. And so I came in and really evaluated what was working the best, what wasn't working, combined them all, re-rolled out a new program, and we made that profitable. So it was previously not profitable. We made it profitable for the first time, and then grew revenue exponentially. So, first quarter made it profitable. Second quarter that I was heading up that department, we doubled revenue. The next quarter increased again, and then the following quarter it was more revenue than the previous quarters combined. So it was really setting that on the right projection, turning that around, making it profitable, and 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 really succeeding in what we're talking about right now, which is that digital demand generation and growth uh aspect of marketing. So
Cool. And what was the secret sauce of that success?
the secret sauce is you always hear the word key performance indicator, KPIs and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And it's like really trying to break it down. Number one, the end goal was revenue and actually net profit. So but how do you back into that? And I think for me, there were a couple of different aspects. One was evaluating what the current conversion rate optimization was. So by putting on a chat bot, by putting on exchange of contact information for downloadable guides, we more than doubled the conversion rate optimization, or the capture rate on the website. So that was making better use of the traffic we already had. Then we drove more traffic there through a variety of advertisements, mostly Google search ads, but a variety of advertisements. So that's one element is the capturing of leads. And there was a variety of partnerships created as well, where we're bringing in leads. So just really at one point, tripling the lead volume. Then it's going through a contact center. So like a call, email, text center. And they were doing a pretty good job converting the leads into in-person appointments. So that I worked a little bit with their cadence and their approach and some of this, but for the most part left that one alone because it was doing pretty well. Then on the back end though, there were now the lead's been turned into an appointment. How do you now you're sending realtors out to the field to take the appointment, and how do you from there increase the appointment to close rate? And so, we set up tracking systems where it made this more scalable, less manual work to keep up with all the appointments. And then also, it was about accountability and educational remedies as well. So if somebody's not converting the appointments into closings, how do you improve their approach and let them, and so basically, if you can capture more of the traffic that's coming in and you can close more of the deals on the back end, you've made it, you've justified all the leads coming in much more.
Are you sick and tired of being overwhelmed and afraid you'll never scale your business? Meet Smart VAs. Unlike many virtual assistant agencies that only assign one dedicated virtual assistant, we provide flexibility for growing businesses by assigning a team of experienced virtual assistants that can do different tasks to support your continuous growth. Visit smartvas.online to book a free discovery call and start growing your business.
So I understand that each business has its own, life cycle. So you may own a business and I may own, the same business, but we may be different depending on where we are at in our journey, So, and I also understand that each business life cycle stage requires a different kind of strategy. So, and I know that you've also successfully helped a lot of companies, on different life cycle stages. So I'm curious to know, what are your unique approach to those different life cycle stages?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there is a concept called STARS. And what that acronym stands for is startup, turnaround, accelerated growth, realignment, and sustaining success. So the concept is every single business is in one of these stages. Sometimes they're in multiple of the stages. There can be some crossover. So for example, let's say, and that's one of the unique things, I guess, when I'm saying my diverse experience in a few different industries, marketing for, and also a few different specialties. It's also marketing for companies at various life cycle stages. So in the startup aspect, you really have to develop the brand. So from the start, you have to develop the brand's why, how, and what. Why do they do what they do? How do they do what they do? And what are they really offering? And then you start to develop like brand standards. And so that's, about your color palette and your, logo and how you just, what the feel and vibe of the brand is, but also like kind of rules around your brand. So when you pass it along to other vendors or other people are coming on board, there's a consistency to your brand as well, because, and so really building those foundational elements in the startup stage, but then you got to build out your marketing system. So it may include building a team from scratch, figuring out, who you need on board, really figuring out also, I guess, from a marketing plan perspective, there's a variety of when you're considering the 4 P's of marketing: product, place, promotion, and price. There's a variety of matrices you can look at. So either SWOT analysis or Porter's 5 forces, and it's all about what's the industry, who's your competitors, how hard is it to get in and imitate duplicate what you're doing, and how successful, what is the market really about right there, and where you're going. So understanding all that, but then really building out systems as well, and just laying the foundational work. So that's what a startup tends to be about. Turnaround is often a company that is in decline, and you need to come, or it can be a division or a department too. It doesn't have to be necessarily a whole company, but that's about needing to come in and do exactly that, turn around the direction and the projection of the business. And so that's kind of when we're talking about that leads development department, it was coming in, how do you make that profitable? And so you need to determine what is not working. You need to determine and cut that, whatever's not working. You need to determine what is working. And then how do you find opportunities? How do you continue to optimize that and make it more efficient? So, and then once you've kind of improved the current situation to the best you can, then you start adding on new elements to that. And that's in a turnaround. And accelerated growth is all about needing to create scalable systems. So, we experienced this with with all the major acquisitions so quickly, is like, okay, well, now we've got more and more offices and teams and agents and everything that we have to support, but we're not necessarily going to have more marketing people doing that support. But what we do need to do is create systems that are scalable, where more and more people can benefit from what we've established. So it comes less from helping people one-on-one on their marketing and more about creating systems and processes. So in accelerated growth, that's what that's all about. But also growth is about taking your spending wisely. So any profit reinvestment in areas that are going to continue to exponentially help you grow. And a realignment, there's you got to kind of manage people, their egos, their personality, their feelings and everything, to ensure that everyone is on board with the changes that are coming on.
This is so true.
Yeah.
Well, not only you need to manage the people, but it's their egos and personalities, their adaptability to change. Those are the things that you really need to manage. But anyway,
Sure.
Go on.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and sometimes in realignment, things have been the way they were for 20 years or, for a long time. So you got to come in and you in a realignment, you really, it's about building a new culture, a better culture. And you've got to be part of that. And as a leader in any department, doesn't matter what department, you're part of creating that culture. So, and then the last one of the STARS system is sustaining success. And so, it's really trying not to shake the boat. So when you come into that situation, it's is trying to just keep things steady, keep them moving. Don't make too many changes too quick. So it's like the opposite of a turnaround. Turnaround, you're coming in, you're doing a lot of changes really quick. And sustaining success, you're just really keeping, you're more maintenance there. It's more of a reactive type of approach in marketing. So yeah, that's the star system. And it's interesting because there's also, no one person is going to be equally as good at every one of these stages. Some people are better at a certain stage than another. But you can work, you can improve because think about it. Even if you're in an accelerated growth a company that's sustaining success, who then somehow you've created where it's going to start accelerating its growth even further. Well, that probably involves some startup products and divisions within the company. So a lot of these things have crossover too. But from a foundational element, that's how you would approach each life cycle stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are really good. And I believe that you cannot skip any of these stages, because these are crucial. And if you try to skip any of this, like for instance, if you like the very first one, which is the startup, if you don't develop your brand, if you don't know your what, why, and if you don't have the right foundation for your business, you move forward to marketing your products, immediately without knowing your mission and vision. You're not going to be successful, because you have to have a greater reason than selling your products or services. And so at what point do you think it is crucial to build a team? When you look at these different business stages.
Yeah.
Should we? Yeah.
It's a lot of it comes down to financials and what is going to make you profitable. But with that, what I like to do is so totally. And that's what we're saying. Build out the brand and the startup, but it's also, you don't want to spend so much time building out your brand that you don't get data and feedback from the market. So you want to put things always at market, testing them, getting data and feedback, and then tweaking and changing and continue updating. That's the way I like to do it, is let the market shape your machine. Instead of trying to shape your machine and then by the time you put it to market, now the market's changed or something like that. So with this being said, when you're talking about when do you hire, to me, in a startup stage, you're doing lots of contracted deals with vendors, and you're piecing together. You don't have to have necessarily a large in-house team, but you're piecing together a lot of contracted vendors. And then when you start to see aspects of your marketing that are working, it's going to be eventually more profitable to bring that in-house. Initially, though, you got to test the concept. So when you test the concept with vendors, that's an easier way to cut it. If it's not working, it's an easier way to, you've got the vendor relationship to keep it going. But eventually the goal would be, if an element is working, then you want to bring that in-house, because your margins are just going to be larger. So when does that time happen? You got to have at least a bit of a team in the startup phase, but as you start to reach that accelerated growth, that's when you would start to really hire on and ramp up your team.
Yeah. And when it comes to, since your background is in marketing, what do you think is the best way to delegate effectively to that person that you're going to hire?
Yeah. So, I think, I like to have one-on-one conversations, really get to understand the person, understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and their goals too, professionally. And the reason why I say this is because, if you can play to somebody's strengths, you're setting them up for success, but also they and if you're helping them achieve ultimately what their career goals and what they'd like to accomplish, they're going to feel more motivated and interested in helping you. So that's number one, is just understanding the person that you are delegating to, because different people work differently, and you need to understand the person. From there, though, I always like to understand their job. I don't think you can really ask people to do something you're not willing or able to do yourself. But on that aspect, different people are at different levels of ability, and again, different people like different. Some people like super clear instructions. Some people like hands off, no micromanagement. So, understanding the person, but in general, I would say I'll be as hands on to help as needed, if that's needed. And I also am willing to be as hands off and just simply provide the ask and give them the room and creativity to come up with what they come up with. Because I think when you're invested and you really get to make it what as an employee, you get to make it what you want it to be. You're just more invested in that. All of that to say, though, clear communication, clear instructions, detail instructions and transparency is important to make sure there's no confusion in what the ask is.
Yeah, I think communication and clarity, they're very important when it comes to, any kind of relationship. So I always, the question that I just asked, what is the best way to delegate? That's the most common question that I always ask here on my show. But I think I want to do it differently. Let's be spontaneous, Branden. Now, what do you think is the bad way to delegate to somebody? What is something that you shouldn't really do when you delegate?
I think there's two ways that are bad, and they're like the extreme opposites, but they're both equally bad. One is saying you're going to delegate something, and then you don't even let the person take off with it in any way. Like, you're so micromanaging, so that you don't even allow the person to do what they need to do. That is, that would be super frustrating for the employee, and that there was no delegation there. It's ultimately, you're still just as involved. Why are you even delegating in the first place if you're going to be that hyper involved? So that's one thing. That's bad. I mean, it doesn't work for the employee. It doesn't work for the person that's delegating it.
It's not giving them the confidence they need to complete the task.
Sure. Now, on the extreme opposite, though, is when you just say, here, do this, and you don't provide any explanation, any instruction, any detail, and you leave it too ambiguous, and then it comes back and you're like, well, that's not what I wanted, but you didn't tell them what you wanted. So there's two extreme opposites that I think are bad with delegation, but somewhere there's a balance. Everything in life's a balance, but there's somewhere on that sliding scale from this extreme to that extreme that becomes the most optimal, delegation approach.
Thank you so much, Branden, for everything that you have shared. They're very valuable, and thank you for being a guest on this podcast. And I appreciate your time and the value that you've shared. And I know that you also want me to mention that you are a fan of LinkedIn Learning, and that's a resource that you would normally go to if you want to learn about up-to-date marketing strategies. So I encourage all our listeners to also check that out. I personally have not checked out LinkedIn Learning yet, so I might just do that, check it out later this evening. All right. Well, if you want to get connected with Branden, reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's mostly active there. You can find him on LinkedIn. Just type in Branden Cobb, Cobb. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but I hope I am. Yeah, so follow him on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about what he does or anything like that, feel free to contact him on LinkedIn, and he'll be responding to you whenever he can. Well, thank you so much for your time,